How should Christians treat people who have a history with murder or other forms of violence and become Christians?
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? And you said that was an actual question that people submitted?
I think it was, that was from Reddit. It was a question I came across. But it was a few questions I kind of morphed into just one central one.
Basically, how do you deal with evil people or people who were evil and then they become Christians legitimately?
Is that the rain?
That's the rain. That's the rain, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. What do you think? I mean, I've got stories, I've got experiences, but what do you think?
Well, I think it's important to be careful to make sure that people are genuine in their turning away from whatever their lifestyle was.
Sure.
But I mean, I think we extend the same kind of forgiveness you extend to anyone else over anything else. But I don't think it's really any different at the end of the day.
So do you just give them free reign to roam around in your church or in your church community?
That's what I was saying. I think it's important to be careful.
So how do you go about being careful?
Not letting someone necessarily be alone with kids, probably.
Okay.
Would be a starting point for something.
Okay.
Or, just, I don't know.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. If Jesus forgives someone completely, are you not forgiving someone completely if you acknowledge the fact that they've done something in their past life?
That's a fair question.
How are we as Christians in this world supposed to treat someone that has a ugly past? I mean, it's kind of the question.
Yeah.
How you like being on the other side of the table?
It's not as much fun. Much rather throw the questions.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you don't take certain steps, and somebody isn't sincere, and something bad does take place because you didn't take certain steps.
Yeah.
That would be pretty unfortunate.
Yeah. I agree.
It's difficult.
It's one of those things where, from my perspective, that God does forgive us, and yet we know that we are all prone to sin. We have a sinful nature, and we wrestle against that on a regular basis. And whatever the reason was why somebody did what they did, the reality is that God can forgive them, that God will forgive them, but they live with the ramifications of what they have done. And so, from my perspective, as a leader in a church, we try to be very careful and cautious with people for their sake as well as the sake of our people, our community. And so I know that when we've had people come in who have had some ugly pasts, I share that with my leadership team, with the elders, the deacons, whatever the definition is, and so that it's not all on me alone, but it's on that we share that load, and we want to be redemptive. We want to be that. We want to help people. We want to be cautious. We want to protect our people. And I think you mentioned, right, you don't let anyone get close to people who are at risk, children or elderly. And so, whether that has to do with someone that's been evil or murder or a rapist, or someone who would take advantage of elderly to get finances out of them, or try to manipulate. What?
I had a really bad joke, but I can't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's not do that.
It can't be on the internet.
Yeah, So there have been at times we've had people who have been a part of the church and or that they've come in and they've said, look, I've got this past, and they share it, and it's like, okay, So, after prayer and after consultation with elders, it's like, this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we set up a plan for them so that they can participate. And there are some, very stringent things that, okay, you can show up at this time, be involved in these groups, but you need to stay away from these other areas and groups,
Yeah.
And basically someone has, gets assigned to them to kind of be their bodyguard, but
Mm-hmm. Be their buddy.
be their buddy, yeah. And thankfully most people have wanted that,
Mm-hmm.
So that shows a sense of that they really want it to be restorative. They're sincere in their
Yeah.
rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm. They're not looking to cause trouble.
Nope. And so it's not a secret, but we treat things with confidentiality, and we let people know who need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't put anyone at risk. We don't. And it's a challenge. It's a balance. And some people are falsely accused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we try to, if God's able to forgive them, then we should be able to forgive them too. And it's a challenge. I mean, because some people have done some tremendously awful things, and I haven't really dealt with someone that's been I haven't dealt with anyone that's like a Osama bin Laden or
Oh, yeah.
Saddam Hussein or
Yeah.
Charles Manson. I don't know if these names are probably too old for you, but
The last one there I don't recognize.
yeah, well, people my age will. So
Yeah.
but I think that that people need to, hey, God forgives you, but you've done some things, and you're just going to have to do the hard work to earn trust.
Mm-hmm.
And trust doesn't come easy, and you have violated all kinds of trust, and you're just going to have to put the hard work in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's an easy answer for that.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's groups that work with people like that, like Prison Fellowship, and
Mm-hmm.
they have great resources and great help to help rehabilitate people, or to help people get into those places and positions to where that they can enter into society and not always feel like the odd person out.
Yeah.
So that, with things like that, I'd probably turn to them for their resources and their help and guidance. And I have in times past reached out to people who, if someone's coming out of prison or out of jail, or there was a really great example when we were in a previous church. There had been a businessman who had gotten into trouble, ended up taking money from an account that wasn't his, and tried desperately to get it back, to pay it back, and it all blew up.
Yeah.
He ended up having to liquidate everything that he'd had. He was a millionaire, but by the time it was all done, he wasn't that anymore.
Not so much.
Not anymore. They liquidated everything, and so he ended up doing time in prison. But he was a good guy.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where he just made some bad decisions in a time of stress, and I remember my pastor, he made a point of befriending him while he was in prison, and when he got out of prison, befriending him and inviting him to church.
Mm-hmm.
And that was challenging because people had been caught up in that investment scheme and lost money. They'd lost some of their retirement stuff, if not all of it. And I remember that we were in the beginning of a building program, and he said, "I want this guy to be the chairman of the building program." You want this guy that lost all this money to be in charge of the money?
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Yeah." And it was a really humbling moment for all of us Christians. It's like, all right, do we really believe that God can restore? Do we really believe that this guy's really good. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but he just, the thing got away from him. Yeah, well, we kind of do. Do you think that he's smart and sharp and able to do this? Yeah. All right. Well, then he's going to be the chairman. Okay. and he did. It worked out pretty good. And I think it was very restorative for him.
Mm-hmm. Given that opportunity to.
Yeah. So, but he wasn't like, he wasn't like the evil person that kills people and rapes and destroys. But I thought it was a great story in terms of restoration.
Mm-hmm.
So there's risk involved. And look at the story of Paul, in the book of Acts. No one wanted to have anything to do with the Apostle Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, if you remember the story, that every time Paul would show up, people would go the other way because they thought that he was, putting on airs. Oh yeah, I really am a Christian. No, I don't think so, and we're not bringing you in.
Yeah.
Until a guy by the name of Barnabas goes out, finds Paul, and begins to introduce him to the leaders of the church, and brings a bit of legitimacy to who Paul is. And they go, oh, I guess it's legit. I guess he really is a Christian.
Yeah.
And you got to thank God for people like Barnabas, who
Maybe didn't have the best name in the world, but it's okay.
Barnabas. Well, it just means son of encouragement,
Oh.
and he lives up to his moniker, to the nickname, and so we need people like Barnabas
Mm-hmm.
who look up to him. And then if you follow that story out, sorry, we're getting off track, but if you follow that story out about Barnabas, he and Paul, do the early ministries until they have a disagreement
And then
split because Barnabas wanted to take John Mark with them, but Mark had kind of bailed on him on a previous thing, and Paul's like, I'm not putting up with this guy anymore, however he would say that, and so they split because of that. But then Barnabas befriends John Mark, and they do ministry, and so instead of just one team, they have multiple teams that are doing ministry, and then later on, Paul speaks about Mark, that he's valuable. So it took him a while to
come around
to that. Oh, I guess he's not the flippant,
the ditcher that I thought
yeah,
he was.
yeah, exactly. So again, one of the things that's not spoken here is that what length of time does it take to be restored? Well, with God, it doesn't take any time at all. With others, it may take a long time to build up a reputation that of trust.
Mm-hmm.